So I've been thinking more about our podcast on Monday and how fear is kind of an illusion and how it's costing us money. I know for me, it's cost me a lot of money. And I heard this sales pitch once, and I think it was so interesting. Guy up on stage asked the lady, "How much do you make?" And she's like, $50,000 a year. And she's like, "How much do you want to make?" He's like, $1 million. And he writes $50,000 up on the board and $1 million and does the math. He's like, it's costing you $950,000 a year not to know how to learn, not to know how to make $1 million, right? And that's kind of how I feel with fear. Like, you never know the opportunity cost that's on the other side of it because you never take the chance. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation on emotions, fear, and how to conquer them. But in Monday's podcast, we talked about how to conquer them. And really, conquering them is not the right word. Conquering is not the right action. Because, and I might butcher this, maybe this is where you want to step in, Chris, on the finite versus infinite game. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I would definitely recommend that our listeners go back and listen to Monday's conversation. What we've been trying to do with the podcast is use money as the jumping off point to go into these deeper philosophical questions to the meaning of life, why we struggle, and all these things. Because the more that I've seen in life, and I think, Dominic, you're seeing this too now, is that it's all interconnected. And getting better in one area is getting better in all areas. So to get better in anything is to get better in everything. So we're using finance as a jumping off point, but knowing that money is just an aspect of your life. And just because you get the money right, that's great. It's going to help a lot, but it's not the end all be all. The end all be all is to get everything better. And money is just a huge aspect of that, we have a relation to and we very much like talking about. But yeah, the difference between a finite game and an infinite game. A finite game is games that are constructed by human ingenuity. They're inner subjective truth. It means that we have created it. So there are no true finite games with the exception of life. Life is a finite game in your one lifespan. You only have this time. So a finite game, an example might be a football match or a football game, a soccer match, baseball. There is a set time constraint. There are set rules that we have to work within. And at the end of that time, the end of the rule set, whatever it is, there will be a declared winner and a declared loser. But in an infinite game, and this is where life is kind of weird. I said life earlier is a finite game, but it's also an infinite game. So life actually works both. Individually, it's a finite game because you only have one life that we know to live, and it is finite. But on the time span of the universe, life is an infinite game until at least heat death happens and the universe collapses in on itself. But, purposes of this discussion, we're not going to go there. Most of us, we go through life playing finite games when the game is actually infinite. So when it comes to money, we're trying to win this game of money as if it was a finite game, as if at the end of my life, someone came and was like, this guy won, he has the most money. And if we're playing that game, we might win at the end. We might say like, I won, but did you really win? Because no one can win this game. I think a lot about this in science, because science is the perfect encapsulation of what a infinite game is. Because the only person who wins science is the person that creates the theory of everything, that knows all knowledge, understands down to the mechanism exactly why all things happen. And to my estimation, that's probably impossible because there's always going to be something we don't know. And the more we learn, the more we know we don't know. The most fundamental question someone should ask themselves is, what question do I not know to ask? Like, that's the craziest question of them all. What knowledge do I not have to know to ask the question about? But in science, if we're playing this infinite game, then it should be a beautiful thing of everyone trying to grow knowledge to get better. But unfortunately, we take ourselves, these human beings who are playing finite games because we only have this one life. And that's where science has kind of become perverted, of people trying to fake findings, fake their research, just trying to get tenure, trying to get published, trying to get all these things, because you're applying your finality, your ego, into something that does not have that. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to humans are the problem. We are the problem. You are the problem. I am the problem. We're all the problem here. And when it comes to the money thing and the fear, the money isn't the issue. The fear isn't the issue. The way I'm relating to it is the issue.
That's kind of what I discovered on Monday's pod about myself. Was I was trying to play a finite game with an infinite with an infinite problem, right? I was trying to conquer fear. I don't want to have any more fear anymore. I want to be fearless. What we kind of discovered was it was all about the conversation and the stories I was telling myself about fear that I was afraid of. I was afraid of the outcomes of fear, not actual fear, because fear is an emotion and fear is like a friend, right? We need it sometimes and sometimes we don't need it. Right? If I'm walking down a street at night, probably good that I'm a little bit afraid. It shows me that this could be a dangerous area, right? And same with the emotion of comfort, right? Same with all of the emotions. They have purpose, they have meaning, and to throw them away or to be a master, to be their master, right, would be incorrect, right? If they're a friend, you would never want to control a friend, right? That would make you a bad friend and a pretty sick individual, right? So it's better to have a relationship with them. Because one of the things that I found last podcast that really transformed it was I told Chris that, hey, I'm good with pain. I'm decent with pain in regards to, say, running, working out, putting in the reps. Totally okay with that kind of pain, right? And he asked, why are you okay with this emotion of pain and not the emotion of fear? Right? And it all came down to the story I was telling myself. And our action step from last week is, well, what stories are you telling yourself? Look at each story you're telling yourself for each situation, and not necessarily for just your emotions, but for everything, right? Because the stories we tell ourselves lead to the life we want or don't want. So if you want to change your life, change your stories, and change the conversation and the dialogue. We talk a lot about on a lot of philosophy on this channel, and a lot about the negative thoughts and the positive thoughts that come into the mind, right? And we always equate it to waves, right? You can't stop the negative or positive thoughts from coming, but you can choose which ones to focus on. Similar to a wave, you can't stop the waves from coming. They're always going to come, right? But you can choose which ones to surf. And the thoughts we focus on are the ones we become. And what we become is because of the actions we do, right? So I highly recommend going back and watching Monday's pod. It was really transformative for me. And I think it'll definitely have a great impact on you guys as well. It's one of those podcasts that you're going to want to listen to over and over and over because it's like a great book. And I know Chris can attest to this. It's like, man, I keep getting stuff out of it every time I listen, every time I read. And I love that. But today we're talking more about how fear is an illusion, right? And the opportunity cost of it. Has there been a time in your life, Chris, that, you were afraid to make a decision, but you did it anyway? And how did you get through that? How did you get past that? Because I feel like a lot of people are in that position,
Every freaking day. I don't think the fear ever goes away. The fear of the unknown, the fear of even the fear of the known is still scary. Fear of suffering, fear of having to go through it. And maybe at some point it's discipline. It's knowing that where I am is not where I want to be. Because if I'm sitting here in discomfort, knowing there could be something better, Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. But if I'm suffering where I am, and I believe that trying this new thing will get me to the place that I want to go, and I have the resources, the ability to do it, it's kind of my duty to take risk. It's my duty as a person, not just to myself, but if you take this wider perspective, my duty to society, to consciousness, to all of human beings to take risks, to try to get better, to put myself into the fire so that hopefully other people don't have to. That's kind of the concept of love, right? Of I will suffer so that you don't have to. I want what's best for you, even at the detriment of me. So if you take that common concept and you say I'm willing to go through these things so that you don't have to, so I can come back and tell you hey, don't do this or do this and stuff like that. And I don't want to say that I'm some Buddha and I'm very happy and great, but that is the thing that helps me propel myself forward when I'm in those moments of fear, because I'm in moments of fear constantly. Business stuff, there's always things where it's when you're running a business, it is constantly fear invoking. And it's waking up knowing that there's a guy who's going to punch you in the face the moment you get out of bed. The moment your eyes open, the guy's ready to punch you. That is what
standing above you.
He's just standing above you, fist cocked, ready to go.
Yep.
And then the moment he hits you, you get out of bed and he's like, hey, I'm not done. And he just keeps on wailing on you. Like, that is what being a business owner is like sometimes. And I guess at the end of the day, when people ask like, well, what do you want out of your life? Like, how do you want to be happy? Maybe you should invert the question and be like, how do you want to suffer? What suffering is good with you? Because that's what really matters. We all want to be happy. We all want these things. None of us want to suffer, but we're all going to suffer. So what way do you want to suffer? Do you want to suffer at being the person who is working a 9 to 5 that you maybe don't love? It's not filling you up, but it makes money. It's fine. You don't have the best apartment. You don't have any of these things, but you're making it. You're living a nice life. It's calm. You're suffering like this quiet destitute or this quiet life of like wanting more. That's your suffering. Or do you want to be the person who's suffering and you're working 50 hours or 60 or 80 hours a week, 9 to 5, you're making a lot of money, but you're not sleeping. You're getting all these other things. You don't see your family. You're suffering in another way. So what way do you want to suffer? I think that's a bigger question there. But when it comes back to the fear and the emotions, what we talked about a lot on Monday's episode was you kept on using the word, Dominic, conquer. How do I conquer? How do I win? How do I pin this fear down? And like, again, it's a finite match, right? If it's a wrestling match, how do I pin? And like, yeah, I did it. I won. And now fear goes away and he like leaves. But if we're playing an infinite game, like, yeah, I pinned fear in this one instance. And now you get back up and it's another match. You're like, well, no, I just won though. And it's like, no, bro. We're doing this again and again and again and again. So eventually maybe you try to befriend fear and be like, hey, I don't want to keep on fighting you. Can we just like be buddies? And if I need you in a situation, now you come and you work together. We work with it. Same thing with anger. We work with it, not through it, not against it. And it's a hard thing to come to that realization that all of those emotions, all of those things are valid and they're real. Like they take up space in reality. Do you want to explain that? How they take up space in reality?
Yeah, go a little bit deeper in that, because I think that's definitely that's hard to conceive, right?
Yeah,
Please, yeah.
I get it. So when I say it, I really try to avoid the woo-woo stuff here in the podcast because I know it turns a lot of people off. I mean, to be totally honest, it turns me off when someone starts talking about like astrological signs and all this other stuff. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm done. So when I say like your emotions, your thoughts, they take up physical space. People are like, well, I can't see it. I can't conceive of it. That's just a dumb statement. But in truth, all of your thoughts, all of your emotions are synapses firing together. So all that is an electrical impulse. All electrical impulses have mass. So in that, if you take that truth that all electrical impulses have mass, your brain shooting those electrical impulses have mass. Your emotions, your thoughts have mass. They come in a physical place. That physical place is minute to the nth degree. It's extremely small. You can't see it with your naked eye. You can't even see it with a telescope. But we know that that's happening. You can't see light, but you know it's real. Our eyes see 0.3% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Yet we believe we can see all things. We can hear literally nothing. Yet we think we hear all things. We can smell a small amount. Like dogs can smell in 3D.
That's crazy.
We know that there are animals like reptiles that can see infrared. Somehow an octopus can feel color. Like I can't even begin to understand, like to touch this mic and be like, oh, that's black. Like I can't even begin to understand. Like I can only use my eyes to know that this microphone is black. But somehow an octopus can be like black, eyes closed, that's a black thing.
Yeah.
We can't begin to conceive of all these things. But yes, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, all of those things have physical mass. So if you look at it as a physical entity, a physical thing, then that means I can interact with it. That means I can communicate with it. It is there and it's within me. Weird concept, but that's the way that it helps me to think about it. That, oh yeah, this is a real thing. I'm having a biological experience. All of the things I'm feeling has a biological mechanism behind it. There's some things I don't understand and some things that as we learn more unlocks new knowledge to us. I'm like, oh, that's how that works. Now I get it.
I think that's what we're all searching for, is just new knowledge and unlocking new things in our world. I want to go back to one of the things that we talked about on Monday's podcast about the stories you tell yourself. And the moment before the story activates, right? The seconds in between the cause and the result, right? Someone cuts me off in traffic and 0.2 seconds later, now I'm angry, right? The seconds in between that and the stories we tell ourselves about that. Do you have any tips for us to, I don't know how I got to this place of where I can take a beat in between action and anger, right? To resolve the anger before it happens. But do you have any idea on how to center yourself so that you can take a pause before going nuclear?
I do want to correct one thing before I get to that.
Okay, yeah,
You
please.
said that you have a second between the thing that happened and the story you start to tell yourself.
Mhm.
I think that when the thing happens, the story begins so quickly. I don't know if you could interject there. I think you interject in the story. The
Okay.
story already began. You're interjecting somewhere in the story. Maybe as you get more advanced, you can interject yourself before the story even begins. But our brains are prediction machines. They're trying to predict, they're trying to explain every single thing that's happening. And they do that through story, through the story they tell themselves. And maybe story isn't the best word, maybe a narrative. I don't know. There's probably a better word, but I use the word story because it makes sense to me. So the way that I've been able to deal with it, first off, was I'll kind of tell you what the journey was. First was through meditation and realizing that thoughts, if you just be with meditation, you don't attach to thinking, you just let thoughts come, they constantly flow. And I don't know where they come from, but you just have a new thought, a new thought, a new thought. If you don't attach to it, you have no thought. And I've kind of now getting to the point that I'm thinking that whenever you're not thinking, you're constantly having thoughts, but since you're not attaching to them, you don't remember that it happened. So you're having all of these amazing thoughts that they could have changed your life. They could have been everything. But since you weren't attaching to them, you don't remember it happening. And then eventually you get to this point where you start thinking. A thought comes to its surface that's so prolific, so whatever, that you attach to it. And now you start thinking about it. And while you're thinking about that thought, you can no longer have new thoughts until you're willing to detach from the thought, let go. And then a new thought can enter your mind that you can either just choose to work with or not work with. So that's where I kind of understood the ideas of thoughts. From there, I started to begin to realize that I have to question everything, question people, question other things, but most importantly, question myself. Because in life, if you don't question things, you just take things at face value, you're going to be misled by a lot of people because there's a lot of people that are looking out for their self-interest. And the really messed up part of life is that easiest person to trick is you. You trick yourself the most. Some version of you is selfish and trying to get something for nothing. Some version of you is lying to you about what you want to do in life, what you want to do. So once you're able to understand that you're tricking yourself, you're telling yourself a story, maybe that version of you that's telling yourself the story is not serving you, the person that you want to be. So as you're telling yourself that story, the question you need to ask yourself is this true? Do I know this to be true? Would I stake my life on that? Would I stake my money on that? Would I stake my family's life on that? And if the story is so true that you would, yes, I would bet to wager all of those things, then if you want to roll with it, roll with it. But I think most of us would realize that, oh, well, I'm not willing to take that kind of risk on those type of things. Then you need to ask yourself, then do I know this to be true 100%? And I don't think there is anything in life that is 100%. You know, if I was to take you to, like, we'll say like Mercedes-Benz, like a good car, right? Good car. If we were to take you to a Mercedes-Benz dealership and there's all the cars there and I gave you all the keys and I said, hey, all of these vehicles are gassed up. You can choose whatever key out of here, go turn on that car. If it turns on, I'll give you $1 million. Or
Mhm.
if it doesn't turn on, I'll give you $1 million. If it turns on, though, then I get to take your life. You know, there's not a 0% chance that that car may not turn on. Even though it's a Mercedes-Benz, it's a good vehicle. Statistically, there's a good chance it's not a lemon. But are you willing to risk all of it on that bet? And most people would say, that's stupid. I would never do that. So why are you doing that with every single thought that you have that you believe is 100% true? You're risking your life on every single thought because you're risking the actions that you're going to take based off of that thought. And that thought might not be real. Most likely it's not. It's not divine truth because we don't have access to that.
Interesting. I know you're the type of person who is constantly looking for truth and the closest version of truth and trying to understand how we can better seek truth in our own life and seek better relationships with our emotions. I found, you know, working out helps with certain emotions. Right? Eating healthier helps with other emotions, helps me be stable. But is there any other things that really or left a prolific impact on you in regards to conquering, bettering a relationship with your emotions? Maybe meditation, maybe it's, seeking certain books or something like that. Like, how does one continue to grow? Because I know a lot of people, they haven't even started on the journey, right? Or they might be on the journey and they don't even know it yet. Do you have any tips for us that could help us really better that friendship?
I know my story. I know
Mm-hmm.
what I did. And I also know how important everyone's journey is to themselves to getting there. And I would never want to tell my story and someone be like, okay, well, that's the path that I need to take. Because it's just my path and it works for me. But that does not mean statistically it's not going to work for you. Statistically, it's not going to work for most people. So the only thing that I could say to that, because I don't want someone to hear my story and be like, I'm going to do exactly what Chris did.
Yeah.
Because you could be stuck in a spot that was easy for me because of my genetics, the experiences I had, the time and situation that we no longer have access to that got me through a situation that you could be stuck in for years. So the thing that I would say is question. Keep on questioning. Question and question and question and question and question. Get down to base knowledge and keep on questioning. Because every point in life that you question it, that just the question allows you to unlock new knowledge. It forces you to look at something. If you take something as truth, then why work on it anymore? Why even try to find truth? Why even try to grow if you take it as truth? But if you say, is this true? Do I know it to be true 100%? The reason that you mentioned, like, Chris, you're seeking truth is because truth is as far down as I have been able to get to why. If I keep on questioning every single thing down to everything, truth has been the bottom layer. And I don't know how to go below that. So right now, yes, I'm trying to seek what is truth. Maybe one day I figure it out and maybe there's another layer, maybe there's another foundation. But just like building a house, we need to make sure that our foundation is extremely stable. I don't want to build a skyscraper on sand. Too much of us, though, we build our entire reality, our sense of self, who we are, what the world is, what the universe means, on a layer of sand. Too many people, they'll put it on their faith, they'll put it on their family, they'll put it on their genetics, but they don't understand it fully. So when someone asks them why, they get pissed off because they don't know why, because they don't know what truth is. They don't know what that ground layer is. And now you're attacking their sense of self, which causes all of us to revolt back. But if you
Yeah.
go down deep enough by asking why to yourself, you destroy yourself down enough, no one can really hurt you because now you're operating on this fundamental foundational level of where do you knock somebody down of they're seeking truth. Well, what is truth? Well, it's knowledge. Well, what's knowledge? Well, it's experiences. Well, what's experiences? And we just keep on going up this chain. And that's the reason that right now, that's why when you said, like, Chris, you're seeking truth, that's the basis. I'm in the bottom of what I think the basement is. But I don't know. The basement can go way deeper. I have no idea. That makes sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense that there's no end to it. There's no end to it, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. But you can always get better and better and better, and that is amazing.
And just to answer your question, again, the big thing for how do you do it is you have to question. And it takes time. You just keep on questioning over and over and over again. Question literally everything. As a kid, I talked a lot about it openly about, like, my struggles as a kid in school and, like, not being in the best school district that didn't care about me, all this kind of stuff, being called stupid and all these things. As I've reflected on it a little bit more, one of the big things about me that has always been troubling to people, to adults, and now that I'm an adult, I get it, is in order for me to understand, I need to ask why like 20 different times. because I'm trying to seek, ever since I was a child, I've been trying to seek the reason behind it. Oh, you put these three letters together. I don't know, PHI. Well, that's like, that's a phi. Like, why? Why? It should be puh. Like, why? And I would ask these questions. And unfortunately, the teachers that I had at the time were like, they explained to me, this is how this letter sounds, except for in this reason, or blah, blah, blah. And I would ask why and why and why and why and why and why, because I wanted to actually know why. Because if I understood why, then I could actually get it. But what they heard is this kid, we explained to this kid why 3 times until they don't know the reason why. And rather than them saying like, oh, I don't know why we use that letter versus this letter. Like, I don't know. The teacher would do is just be like, well, this kid must be retarded.
Mhm.
And like, sorry to use the hard R word, but like, that's what happened to me. It's like, oh, this kid must be stupid because we explained to him why this many times and he still doesn't get it. He must be mentally challenged. When I was just trying to get down to baseline, like, what is the actual mechanism behind it? And rather than them being able to hear it and be like, oh, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, we should go and try to find that out together, kid. They turned that on me. And that's been a challenge of my life for, 30 odd years. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself that. How many times do we trick ourselves? How many times do your kids come to you, ask you why? And rather than you just being like, I guess I don't know, you get mad at your kid because you're telling yourself a story of like, oh man, my kid's going to know that I'm dumb, that I don't know this stuff. They're going to question me. They're going to question my authority. They're not going to listen to me. Again, it's all a story that you're telling yourself. The fear, the trepidation, all of that stuff is just a story. And you have the moment every time by questioning yourself. Is this real? Is this real? If I don't know what the speed of light is, my kid asked that, and I was just like, oh, it's this point, blah, blah, blah per second. I can't remember what it is. If I don't know that answer, my kid says, my dad must be dumb because he doesn't know what the speed of light is. I don't have to listen to my dad. Why if I don't listen to him, I should steal from him. I should do all this stuff. I should kill dad. Like, you have so many points there to interject yourself in the story and ask, is this true? Would I bet everything on it that this is true? And I doubt that anyone would do that. So question yourself, question everything, and keep on going until you find what your truth is. Because maybe you get to a different point where you say, hey, Chris, the base level is not truth, it's this. And just because if someone comes to me and says that, I'm not going to get pissed off. I'm going to be like, that's awesome. You keep exploring that. I'm going to keep exploring my thing. Teach me what you taught me, what you learned, though, so I can see if it works for me. Because just because one person is right or one person is wrong, it doesn't mean that he is always right and always wrong. 2 people can be right simultaneously, just like 2 people can be wrong simultaneously.
And being wrong is it's so villainized in today's society. It's like it's people look at it such a bad thing, right? It's a beautiful thing to be wrong because you dared to be right. And I think that's one of the fears that we have to overcome as a society. It's like, it's okay to look stupid. It's okay to look bad. It's okay to look like you don't know what you're doing because you're in the pursuit of more knowledge, right? And I encourage everybody, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look dumb. Don't be afraid to be the dumbest person in the room. If you're the dumbest person in the room, you're in the right room. That's a good room to be in, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, might be time for a new room, right? Unless you're teaching. Okay.
Well, even if you're teaching, it's probably still fine to learn from your students, because then
100%.
that's where people get upset, right? Yeah, I wonder about that, about wanting to grow, wanting to continue to learn the entire time. Why do we as adults believe that we know everything? And if we don't know something, that is an inherent meaning on us as an individual, that we are somehow bad. To go back to my childhood, when I was growing up, I remember hearing people who were always so sure of themselves. Whenever they would say anything, they were 100% sure. And as a kid, I guess I was lucky, not lucky, but the way I choose to look at it is I was lucky that people called me dumb, that people called me stupid for so long, because my sense of self was never predicated on being right. Because as a kid, I was always told that I was wrong. So now as an adult, having the fear to ask the question doesn't scare me anymore. But as an adult, could you imagine going through your whole life? Because our school system, our educational system, everything is predicated on being right. There is one right answer to a math question. There is one right answer to answering a prompt, like a prompt written. Of course, there's not one right answer. That's crazy. It's a prompt. even 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2.
And that one might need some explanation.
I'll explain that real quick. Okay,
Okay.
Just to make sure that, so if I have one apple and I have another apple, if you put both those apples together, I have 2, right? And I'm just going to explain this real quick. I can go deeper on it, but I'm just going to explain it real quick.
Yeah.
If I have 1 cup of water and 1 cup of water and I add them together, do I have 2 cups of water?
You might have 2 cups, or you might have 1 cup. Depends on your definition of cup.
Okay, so I have 2 apples. I put them side by side, 1 cup of water. I have a cup of water, a cup of water. I add this cup of water into this cup of water. Do I have 2 cups of water?
Yes and no. Because yes and no. I get what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's that. It's not always. But we go through our whole life saying it's always and never this thing, never always this thing, never this thing. So you go your whole life trying to appease your adults, appease other people, saying like, look how smart I am. I'm getting rewarded for having the quote unquote right answer. And then you get to your adulthood and you realize like all the answers that you thought you had were actually wrong. And then you rail against it because your whole identity is being built on being right, not on being the person that's trying to learn. And that's a precarious place to be, because if your whole identity is built on being right, well, then you can't question, you can't grow, you can't dare to question things, because to dare to question things is to dare to be wrong. And if your whole identity is based on only being right, you can't do that. It's too much of an identity breakage.
Yeah. And a lot of people can't handle that identity breakage, like you said. So what would be our action step for the week?
Yeah, the action step of the week is the same one that holds. It's to question your story. And not just question your story, question everything. If you've questioned your story, you're like, Chris, I know my story, I'm good. You don't. Just between you and I, you don't. So keep on questioning more. But if you feel like I don't need to question myself, question other things. Question everything. Why do we have 26 letters? Why is our number system on a base 10 system? Why not a base 8? Why not a base 16? Like there's all of these different ways of looking at things. And most of the time, the reason that things are the way they are is because it worked for the person that came up with it.
100%. 100%. I think with that being said,
go ahead.
Continue. No, I was going to say, to continue to learn and continue to go down this rabbit hole, and really, I implore you guys to start meditating, right? If you don't know how to meditate, watch some videos on meditating, base level, just start out, take a nice shower, no music, no anything, just think about different things. I find that my best ideas are when I'm alone in the shower and just alone. I mean alone, away from everything. I can just be myself. And it's kind of ironic too, because while I don't take a shower with clothes on, right? I'm in my most natural state and also thinking my most natural thoughts. I don't know, there's got to be something there. I'm not saying to meditate naked, but that's kind of funny to me. It kind of cracks me up. I have better results, at least I do in the shower. I love what you were saying about questioning everything. And I think people are waking up to questioning a lot of things, especially with government and different things like that. But we forget to question ourselves, question our way of thinking. Why do you think this? What line of thinking brought you to this example, brought you to this result? And usually it's programming from others. So I think it's important for us to program ourselves now. Too often we're programmed by our surroundings, and that's fine. We have good surroundings, but let's take control of our lives and really program ourselves to the person we want to be. So with that being said, any final thoughts, Chris, before we move on?
No, let's get on to 5 Friday feedback.
Let's do it. So today's viewer mailbag. If you don't know, this is the segment where we read a letter from the community and we read it out to you, and they ask for advice and we give advice. Simple enough, right? So today's header of a doozy. Trapped in a career I hate. Is it too late to start over? How about that? Well, that is our letterhead for today's episode. So howdy, Fi guys. Howdy. I'm writing because I am starting to feel really stuck and could use some advice. Very nice. I graduated 2 years ago and landed a job at a large company in a rotational program, working across different finance areas. At first, I thought this would be a great opportunity to figure out what I like and gain experience, but now it's just left me feeling completely lost and helpless. With each rotation, I realize more and more that I just don't care about finance at all. I have zero passion for the work. And the more and more I push through it, the more it feels like I'm suffocating. Honestly, I've started to really dread going to work every day.
It sucks. I have been there.
Looking back, I realize this isn't new. Even in college, I wasn't excited about my coursework. It always felt like a chore. But I convinced myself, with the pressure from family and friends, how it goes, that this was the smart path. Stability, a good salary, a respectable career. That's what everyone said mattered most. Now I'm starting to question it all. Took our advice in advance. Starting to question it all. Love it. What's the point of stability or a high-paying job if I feel miserable doing it? I can't imagine spending decades like this. I know I've barely started my career, but the thought of continuing down this path feels unbearable. The problem is, I don't even know what I'd switch to. I have no idea what I'm passionate about or what kind of work would even make me happy. And if I did figure that out, I worry that I'd have to start all over again. Maybe even go back to school. I don't know if I can do that again. Have either of you ever felt this way? Like you choose a path that looked good on paper, but just wasn't right for you. Did things get better, or did you make the big switch at some point? We got some stuff to talk about with that one.
We could talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll continue. I got like 2 paragraphs left. So I can't shake the feeling that something is wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. Other people in my program seem so excited about the opportunities and I just feel indifferent. Like I'm going through the motions.
Maybe they're just not your people.
100%. Took the words out of my mouth. I've rotated through several areas and none of them have sparked even the slightest interest. And I feel completely out of place. I guess I'm hoping that you might have some perspective or advice. Is there a way to figure out what I should be doing, or is this just part of the career? Should I stick it out? Thanks for listening. From I'm chasing the pay, but my joy is gone astray. How about that?
Okay, so what I want to do is before we start off, I'm going to answer this as if I was just some normal finance bro and not the Fi Guys finance bro.
Gotcha.
Dude, shut up. You're making money. You're in finance. This is what it's all about. Who cares if you're suffering? Make money. That's all that matters. Now let's answer it the way that we're supposed to answer it, because what traditionally is found on the internet of how to do things, it's they take the human out of the equation. And they think that, the only thing that matters is money. Here at the Fi Guys, we don't believe that. Money is not the goal. Money is the facilitator to the goal that you want. And the goal is a fulfilling life, time with your family, time with your kids, time with whatever. I don't know what your goal is. Your goal is your own goal. It's your meaning. It's your purpose. Money is not that. Money just helps you get there. Money helps you walk up the hill. What's your thoughts on this one, Dominic?
I think he's a square peg in a round hole, right? The round hole being the finance career and square peg being him. He's not enjoying it, right? You can't force a square peg through a round hole. Of course, you could force it through, but it would break the square, right? And life is not about forcing you through, breaking you down, molding you, right? It's about life is to be enjoyed. And when you're doing a job that you don't love in your heart, you're not going to do a good job. I know people who love what they do. It was their purpose. And you can see it in their work versus someone who this is a job for them. You can see it, right? I think the only way to know what you like is to try new things. And I love that he's questioning things. I think it's so important to start questioning things, questioning everything, right? This kind of breaks my heart a little bit too, because his friends, his family, everybody's telling him, this is great. It's a great job. Like too much influence. And I hope that he's starting to build the muscle of self-confidence in his own self, his own decision-making, because it's not other people living his life. He's living his life. He has to suffer with the decisions that he makes because of the influence around him. What are your thoughts on the situation, Chris?
So just to make sure, are you leaning towards finding a different career, like changing everything, or what are you leaning towards?
100% change everything. Change
Okay.
it all, right? I think sometimes you need to change the direction a little bit, and sometimes you need a whole nother destination. Um, I think he should, on his off time, figure out what he likes. I wouldn't just show up to freshman year again. Like, I quit tomorrow. I'm going to school, and we're just going to wing it again. It's like, no. We need more research this time, right? So I think definitely finding what your hobbies are, finding what you enjoy, and it's more about learning who he is as a person. What's his strengths? You know, if he loves public speaking, maybe a role where he speaks a lot to the people is great. Maybe he's an introvert. Maybe he doesn't work well with people. Maybe then you can work something in the back rooms, right? So I think it all starts with knowing yourself, right? And I don't know if he knows himself enough, but he's starting to know himself. He knows what he doesn't like, and that's important. But now it's time to start knowing more about what you do like. And that's a beautiful journey, and it's exciting, and it's a little bit scary, right? But fear, like we talked about in the last two podcasts, fear is your friend. Use it when you can, use it when you need it. So I think definitely when your body and your mind is telling you that you need a change, you have to pay attention to it. You have to focus on it. And I think the more and more you push it away, push it down, the more suffering is going to take place. Like if it's like,
Okay.
it's like if you didn't get burned by the fire once, it's like, ooh, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot. You keep putting your hand back in the fire more and more and more until your hand is just in the fire. You're just going to burn all your skin off, right? Until you learn, right? Or you don't learn and you just catch on fire and die. So that's not really what we want to happen here. So
Let's not do that.
let's not do that.
So I'm going to take the opposite side of the coin, just because I don't disagree with you, Dominic.
Yep.
And I believe that being dogmatic on anything is not the right answer, because at the end of the day, this is this young man's life, or young lady. I don't know if it's a man or a girl. Actually, I don't know if it's a dude or a guy. But this is this person's life, and I think they're already being influenced enough as to like, do this, don't do that. You need to know yourself. At the end of the day, yeah, maybe they can leave their work because they don't like it and go find another work, but we still have to remember that we're working within the physics of reality. In reality, in an economic system like we have, late stage capitalism, you still need to have money to go to work. Maybe you have student loans. Maybe you have an apartment that you're paying for. Maybe all of these things are true. I don't know enough from what I'm reading. So when it comes to, should I just dip out and start over again? I don't know. Where are you financially? What is going on there? Maybe you have to stick it out because you're stuck in it. And I've been there, dude. One part of the thing you asked, like, have either of you ever felt this way? Like, was it tough to choose another path? Did it get better when you switch? I remember working a job that I would wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. to go work out. And then I would come home, try to do all the stuff that I needed to, so I could be to work by like 6:30. And like before I would leave, I would be sitting in my closet negotiating with myself to put my pants on, negotiating with myself that like I wasn't feeling sick, negotiating with myself that like, you have to go in today. I know what it's like to sit there in the darkness and be like, I hate this so much. I can't stand it. And that was the push that took me to the next place, was hating it so much that, and eventually knowing that the fear of changing couldn't be worse than the fear of staying. I don't know where you are in that cycle. I mean, is it like, it's not super happy. I'm not super fun. Then maybe just tough it out, because I know that you're not finding what you love, but it's kind of like finding your one person. If you're someone who believes like, oh, there's only one person in the universe out there for you. Well, statistically, they're probably in China then. Like statistically, it's not the guy that you met at the store or the person you met on Bumble. Statistically, there's somebody else. So what do? We settle. We try to find somebody that like works enough. And that's sometimes what our job is. We have to remember that we have multiple selves. Sometimes your job isn't going to be the thing that is rewarding and gives you this perfect work-life balance and all this stuff. And if you're at the point of like, I can't do this, then yeah, you need to make a change. If it's like, I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to stay in the job, then yeah, leave the job like in a heartbeat. Like we don't want to end it for all of that. So I don't know where we're at, but you're learning something very valuable about yourself. And as a young person, you're learning what you don't like. And sometimes we have to go through a lot of things that we don't like to finally find the thing that we do like. And the only way that we find the thing that we do like, to Dominic's point, is to try new things. And maybe if you're in the place where I'm kind of assuming you are, if you're writing in, if you're listening to the podcast, I don't have the ability just to quit my job and go and do all these things, then don't. Search outside of your work, search within your work, talk to people, like talk to the janitorial staff that works inside the building. I don't know, talk to anybody. Is there like a gardener? Is there anything like that you could talk to? Be like, what are the things that I like? You're young and you're in a situation right now and you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in this path forever. And my guess is because you're asking people that are assholes that are only thinking about what they want in their life. Oh, if I had a job that was a finance job, I had your job, I would be happy. They don't know that. Everyone always thinks the grass is greener on the other side. But the issue is, it's because somebody else is over there watering it. And when you get over there and you kick that person out and you don't water the grass, and it becomes crappy, just like the other side where you were was. And then you say, oh, it must be over there. It must be over there. Too many people go through life and then they project onto other people saying, oh, this is what you should do because this is what I would do. When I can guarantee you, if they were inside your situation, they'd probably be complaining the exact same amount. Because that's what we do as human beings. We just want more and more and more. And we never realize how lucky we are, what we actually have. Maybe you're in this job though, and you can break those two senses of self. There's your work self and your at-home self. I don't believe that work has to necessarily define you. It's nice if it does. And if it does, that's awesome. So the final question you end with us is there a way to figure out what I should, quote unquote, be doing? Or is this just part of starting a career and I need to stick it out? Yeah. Part of a career is it sucks. I never met someone who starts a job and is like, I love every aspect of it.
Yeah.
But you go through parts of it that you like and parts of it that you don't like. And the goal is to figure out what parts I like and bring more of those. But there's always going to be things you don't like. But don't follow what traditional people are telling you, because most people are going to tell you, go through life hating 80% of it so that 20% of it you can do what you want to do. Those are the people that only chase money. Those are the people that you maybe are talking to and they're telling you, stiff upper lip, be stronger, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Why not flip the equation? Why not have it be 20% of the time you're doing stuff you don't like to do? So the other 80, you can do things that you love, that light you up. So I want to talk about this concept of Ikigai. Okay. It's something that I went through to figure out, like, what is it that I want for my life? Because at first I thought I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist. Then I thought I wanted to be a Marine. Then I thought I wanted to be a CHP officer. Then I thought I wanted to be an operations manager. Then I wanted to be a sales manager. Then a financial advisor. Now a freaking financial coach. Like, you don't know the tangent that's going to get you to where you are. But this idea of Ikigai is a Japanese concept, and the meaning of it, or the rough translation, is your reason for being. Your Ikigai is the reason for your being. So there's 4 quadrants, 4 circles, and kind of like what are those, Venn diagrams? Are those the ones I'm thinking of, where there's 2 circles? Yeah. So it's a Venn diagram, but with 4 circles. Mm-hmm. So there's 4 questions I want you to ask yourself. What do I love to do? What am I good at? What can I get paid for? And what does the world need? Too many of us, we don't look at all 4 of these questions. We're just trying to answer one of the questions. And if you're just sticking there in that binary state, you're never going to be happy. Some people will even take it a step farther and be like, well, if I find something that I love and something that I'm good at, then I can find my passion. But sometimes your passion doesn't pay for anything. Or maybe sometimes people would be like, okay, I found what I'm good at and I found what I can get paid for. Well, that might be a profession. And then, if you find someone who's like, oh, okay, this pays for things and it's what the world needs. Well, that's kind of like a vocation, something that you might want to give time to. It's like a charity, something that is really important. And then just to take it one more step, you might find something that the world needs, something that you love, and that's your mission. Now, each one of these things doesn't create a life. It's not Ikigai. Ikigai is where all of those 4 circles find the middle. What I love, what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, what I like to do, what the world needs, and what I can get paid for. That might be your mission. And what are those 4 quadrants for you? I have no freaking idea. You have to find that for yourself. And the most messed up part is it changes as life changes.
Yeah. And I think that's so one of the things that we don't talk about. Sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the things that we don't talk about is you commit yourself to a path and people count on you. People look forward to you, right? And then you change as a person, and the path no longer invigorates you like it once was. And it sucks sometimes to pivot, but
Yeah, it does.
uh,
It's so hard because there's so many people now. It's like, oh, just follow your passions. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that sounds great, but passions don't pay the bills, bro.
yeah,
Or like, what's your life's mission? It's like, yeah, my life's mission sounds good, but like, that's not paying the bills, bro. And like, it just makes it really hard. And sometimes in life, it's okay for things to be hard, but we have to remember that we still need to operate in the realm of reality. We still need to make money. All of these things do need to happen. So Ikigai has been the thing that has kind of helped me out. But unfortunately, we work in a system like our system has failed us. The system of capitalism of, okay, we're going to send you to school for 12 years to learn how to be a good worker. Then after that, we're going to ask you, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? When you're 17 or 18 years old, then we're going to put you in $100,000 to $300,000 in student debt. And now you're committed to this path because you can't get out of it. It should be criminal to ask a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old who has zero experience outside of life, because for the first 18 years of your life, everything has been ordered for you. You're told where to go. You're told what class to go up to. You're told exactly everything. And now the reins come off at 18 just because you magically hit a number. And we're like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Of course you have no freaking idea. You've never explored anything.
yeah.
And yeah, all of it sucks. I would be the first person to say all of it sucks. And you're the one who has to deal with it.
And you're the only one who can deal with it.
Mm-hmm. It's
Only
kind of
you
like
can
the
change
concept
it.
of, yeah, it's the concept of, if you walk outside into the street, or if you're walking on the sidewalk and you get hit by a drunk driver, whose fault is it? Yeah, it's their fault. They're the one that hit you. And it's your fault.
Yeah.
Not it's your fault in that you're the one at fault for the accident, but you're the one who has to bear the consequences. You're the one who has to take yourself to physical therapy. You're the one who has to do that. No matter how much you hate that person that hit you, no matter how much you complain and bitch about it, they're not going to go through physical therapy for you. They're not going to work out for you. They're not going to have to deal with the trauma that you have to go through. You're the one who has to go through it. All of these things can be true simultaneously. Life can suck, and you're the one that has to put yourself out of it. And you're going through it right now. But look at how lucky you are in that you now know, I don't know how many rotations you've gone through, but hey, that's 12 things or 10 things or 5 things that you know you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you're getting valuable skills. You're learning. You have a degree in finance, maybe. That's like a degree in psychology or communication. Yes, alone it's not great. But if you combine it with something else, with your passions, with what the world needs, with what you're good at and what you get paid for, you can take that and go anywhere. It's not like you have like this advanced biology degree that only works in this one field, like, oh, I just work with hummingbirds and only hummingbirds. Like I only have knowledge in this one bird,
Yeah.
and now the bird's gone. I can't transfer that knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge of finance, of psychology, of most degrees can be transferred if you're willing to find a way to make it. So you got it. I believe in you. You made it through college. You're not that far along. Situation sucks. You'll be okay. And you right now, you know what I would do? This is what I've been doing recently. If you're in that moment of like, this sucks, and you're just stuck in that spiral, grab your phone, set a timer, put it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. I say 5 minutes, and say for the next 5 minutes, I can cry, I can scream, I can punch a wall, I can scream into my pillow, I can just thrash around on the floor like a child and be angry with the way that the situation is. After 5 minutes, though, I need to get up and I need to do something about it. And if you need to have one of those moments every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, you do that. But don't just sit here ruminating on it and never doing something about it. You need to take action. Feel your feelings and then take action.
I think that's an interesting quote. Feel your feelings and take action. I like that. Well, I hope that helps you. And best of luck on your journey. And we hope to hear back from you down the line. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to Win of the Week. This is where we end off the podcast on a positive note, sharing our victories throughout the week. We like to call it Win of the Week. So, Chris, what is your Win of the Week?
Yeah, so these past few days after we did our Monday pod, I went back to San Diego to spend some time with my family. So I was there for the last 4 days, or 3.5 days, really. But it was really nice just to be there with them in their presence. Just going to spend time with the family. It lights me up in that, like, that's kind of the purpose. If we're talking about like purposes of life, it's to be there with people. money isn't the goal. Spending time with like people in meaningful things is the goal for me right now. And maybe one day that's going to change, but that's my goal. So it gave me a lot of inspiration for the reason that my wife and I are working so hard to get back to San Diego, to like have those little moments with them. So kind of put a fire under my ass again, or like
Yeah,
more wind in my sails.
I love that. I love that. Well, that's a beautiful win. And for me, my win of the week, I have two wins of the week this week. Um, Somewhat related. They are necessary to go 1-1. So the first win of the week is that I perfected my garlic knot recipe, and I'm really excited about it because oh man, hard outside, soft chewy inside, minced garlic, butter, Parmesan cheese on. Oh, so good. I might go make some later, but I perfected my garlic knot recipe. That was a very big win for me. And on a different note, I ran 5.5 miles yesterday, so that was good. So both necessary, right? You're gonna have the garlic knots. You're gonna have to run 5 miles, right? So that was the longest I've ran in a while, in a good distance in a while, because I'm trying to start ramping up the mileage and building up more and more and more, and strengthening my knees and my legs and everything. So those two are my wins of the week. Maybe you, as yourself viewer, have a win of the week. If you guys would love to put it in the comments, I love seeing other people win of the week. I love seeing other people's wins of the week. But yeah, guys, I hope today's podcast really inspired you, entertained you, and maybe forced you to question a few things about yourself and your own reality and your own life. And I hope you took something away from it. And if you did, please feel free to share it with someone who you believe needs a little bit more value from the content that they're watching and listening to. We're on every single platform: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on all of them, right? So there's no excuse not to listen if you don't want to get better and have a better life. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, for giving us a 5-star on those podcast platforms. You can tell, like, now that I've got garlic knots in my brain, now that I'm thinking about them, I'm distracted. I'm like, man, now I'm hungrier now, and dangerous to bring up the garlic knots. But anyway, guys, Chris, thank you for being here. Dom, thank you for being here. And we'll see you on Monday's episode.
All right, guys. Later.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.